News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation this evening with a guest who needs no introduction. Sounds like Letterman did. But anyway, he is, of course, the legal eagle, former governor and President's Counsel, Mr. Maithri Gunaratne. Very good evening to you, Maithri.
Good evening, Faraz. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for saving the day. We were due this evening to have Mr. Charita Herat, the chairman of COPE, and we had already put out some posters about that. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, and Mr. Gunaratne was booked to come tomorrow, but we've kind of swapped. But there you go. Now then, big question is, how do we balance foreign policy with national commercial needs? I think very specifically trying to ask you about the amendment to the Electricity Act, all this controversy about trying to give the Adani Group a large renewable energy project, and the claims that the chairman of the CB had said that that he was asked to do it, because apparently the Indian Prime Minister wanted it, only for him to retract. So it sounds like a typical Mellu. I thought I'd ask you, what should be the position? What is the legal position that ought to be adopted?
Faraz, you have asked several questions.
Yeah.
So if I may start with what should be our foreign policy, I think we have for a long time adopted a non-aligned type of foreign policy when it comes to the other countries around us and the world.
Yeah.
And I think we should continue to hold that type of policy because we are a small country. We can't afford to take sides and then be blamed by the others. As it is, I think we have compromised our foreign policy within the last maybe 2-3 years. So be that as it may, now when it comes to your other question was with regard to the new Electricity Act.
Yeah.
I think for us that was a very good thing which this government did, because this monopoly should be stopped, and private players should get the opportunity to supply the grid with whatever the electricity they can produce. Because one thing is, the government has no money to start these mega electricity projects. Whether it is Adani or whoever it is, for us it is immaterial. As long as people can come and supply us electricity, the CEB should be able to buy it at a reasonable cost. Now there are 3 to 4 main sources of electricity. One is hydro, one is wind power, other is solar, and the other can be even coal power.
Yeah.
Now the CEB has to work out their figures and tell the public, okay, this is the price we are going to buy hydropower at. Give the prices for the respective electricity suppliers, which is solar and wind. Then anyone who wants, even if you want to set up quite a big power plant to supply for us, all you do is you set it up and you tell the electricity board, here, look here, I have set this thing up. Within 1 month, I'm going to start production. Please give me the connection and connect it to the grid. So,
but we have a technical problem, and maybe that site doesn't have a transformer that can take that amount.
No, for us, the point is this. Now, when they are going to set up a place, now for instance, if you take it province-wise, the government and the CEB must promote electricity suppliers to give it at province-wise. So that we'll say southern province will have its own, or will try to manufacture its own electricity. Like that, they can give it province-wise. So what I'm saying is, if they bring in a formula where you can supply it at any price. Now it's like from a supermarket we go and buy vegetables, or we go and buy tin foods, or we go and buy rice. There is a listed price. I mean, if we want to buy it, we'll buy it, or we'll buy something cheaper. So in the same way, if the electricity or anything which anyone wants to supply to the government without going through this tender procedure for us, because what is happening is this: moment you have a tender procedure to supply electricity, what can happen is, and what has happened is, now we'll say the diesel generation people who are the mafia in this country, who is supplying most of the electricity to the country, they go and participate in this tender, submit some absurd prices which they say they can supply the electricity, and what they do is they say no, we cannot do it. Then what happens is that whole tender is cancelled. Then they have to set the process in motion again. Why do that? Why do that? Have a price list. This is the prices we are going to give our electricity. We are buying electricity at this price. You're free to sell it.
So what you're suggesting is that wherever a developer makes his choice, if the connection can't take it, then the investment for that connection must be made by the CEB, because the rest of the investment is being made by the private sector.
Definitely.
By the developer.
Definitely.
And that would be an equitable sort of situation.
Because for us, the state does not have to spend billions of rupees borrowing money. And what I'm saying is, for us, now you take the electricity board, it is running at an absolute loss. You take the petroleum corporation, it's running at absolute loss. So why continue and perpetuate these losses?
And because we are not exactly the Kuwaiti investment fund.
So why try to perpetuate these losses? All they have to do is they pay us, we'll say, a certain amount of money for the electricity. They buy it, they sell it to the consumer, they make a small profit out of it. So the electricity board or the petroleum corporation cannot run at a loss for us. It's simple as that. So I can't understand why they are running at a loss of billions and billions and billions.
So basically what you're saying is that, well, actually, let's put it another way. One of the good things, there are several good things, I might hasten to add, but what this Aragalaya has achieved is absolutely unique. Aragalaya has given us many good things. I'm looking into my phone because I made these notes while I was driving here, or being driven here. One of them, of course, is something that unfortunately the Rajapaksa family have perpetuated in various shapes and forms, and that is disunity amongst the different communal sectors in this country.
Definitely.
And unity amongst the people was one thing that was that came out at Aragalaya. But the other thing is also that Aragalaya was asking for accountability and responsibility.
Definitely.
And inter alia, I think what they also said is that, you know, there is nothing called free lunches. State-owned enterprises will have to either show delivery in both in terms of finance and service delivery, and if they can't, they need to be shut down.
No, for us, there are 420 odd state-owned enterprises. Out of which I think only a handful are running at a profit. So why run this at a loss?
Correct.
No, it's a very, very simple, straightforward mechanism the government has to adopt for us. You will easily be able to find 400 successful small-time businessmen in this country. Call those businessmen and give them one of these companies and say, on behalf of the country, run this at a profit, we'll give it to you for 6 months for you to show profits. It can be done.
But you did that when you were at the mineral sands.
Now the mineral sands for us, it is a place I would reckon you can make an easy profit of 500 million rupees a month.
Right.
A month. Because I was able to make about 150 million. I was there only for maybe 1 year. I was after the 4th month I was making about 150 million rupees, and we were getting more and more new machinery. I was doing it with a great amount of effort and obstacles, because the secretary to the ministry was not cooperating with me, because as usual these secretaries, when I was in the coal company also, the secretary was the stumbling block, and again when the industries ministry, the secretary was the stumbling block. So it is runnable, profitably runnable, there is no problem.
But back to this whole thing that you know, the officialdom are more to blame than politicians. Would you agree with that?
No, for us, I'll tell you, that's a very good question you asked me. I would say the government sector is there to completely stop progress. the government sector, if you take for instance from a plan,
yeah.
approval of a plan, if you are building a house, you need to approve, get a plan approved, you go to the municipal council, you go to the Pradesh Sabha, can you get it done over the counter? No.
Yeah.
It's a sad no. Then what have you got to do? If you are willing to bribe them, the plan will come within 1 day. So here is a system, here is a government, the taxpayers are paying the money, their salaries, the taxpayers are paying for their privileges, the taxpayers are paying for their pensions, and over and above that, the taxpayers have to pay bribes and other forms of bribery to get a job done. So this is the government sector. I mean, I'm not saying everyone is like that, but I would responsibly say 90% of the state sector is there. They are the ones who completely stultify any kind of growth. They are against development. They are against any kind of progress. They are all out because they say that their salaries are low. Then they should have never gone in for government employment. They say their salaries are low. So therefore, what they're trying to justify by harassing the poor public more and more. And what they are doing is they are stultifying development. Now, if you take for us an investor who comes to Sri Lanka, who wants to invest in a project, he comes in with the money. It takes 2 years to get the approvals
for a power project.
For any project.
Oh, okay.
Any project. So for us, would the interest be live for 2 years? Who is the one who is going to be focused and waiting for 2 years to get it? What is the interest for them to come to Sri Lanka and wait for 2 years when the other countries you go and they're giving the approvals over the counter? For us, it's a simple thing here. If there is an investor who comes into Sri Lanka, if he is bringing the money, I would say we must give him approval forthwith over the counter, and the approval process can take place within 2 months after he brings in the money, and we give the sanction to start the project. If he is buying the land, if he is bringing the money, if he is bringing the engineers and the expertise and the raw material, what is the problem we are having for us?
Exactly.
What is the problem we are having? What is the BOI doing? BOI is another government organization. They are sitting there. Anyone comes to invest, what they do is they put down so many conditions which are sometimes impossible to accomplish, and ultimately that investor gets so angry with the country they leave Sri Lanka. How many hundreds of investors have come and found this situation and got frustrated and gone from Sri Lanka? So this is a crying shame, and this is what the public sector has brought this country to. That's the sad part of it for us.
Some months ago, perhaps even up to a year ago, I was privy to what was going on in respect to the Umaoya project. The government needed around $50 to $60 million to pay the Iranians to get on with it, and bring it to a fruition, to a situation where we could actually start using all three aspects of the project. But instead of passing that money, which the Iranians would have been happy to accept it in 6 installments, for example, but instead of doing that, there was a proposal presented to the cabinet to buy in emergency power, for heaven's sake, and it was a lot of money.
So for us, emergency power means diesel power. This is the mafia. They are here with the barges.
Yes. Now, with respect to the Adani matter, do you think it's fair that we? On what basis does it make it fair? Is it on this investment business because we don't have the money?
No, for
and
us,
if you're bringing it in, so fine.
For us, we are having a power crisis in Sri Lanka. From 2015, we have not been able to add very much to our grid. So we are with every passing year, the power demand is growing. So we need people to come and supply power. And in today's context, okay, if it is Adani who is going to come, well, I mean, I have personally no problem, because one thing is this for us. Now, India, you will know, has supplied us with fuel for the last maybe 2 months. Last shipment of the final shipment is coming in another week's time, and thereafter no one knows where any fuel is going to come. So when India is helping us in this manner, there is nothing called a free lunch or a free drink.
So we need to remember that. On that note, let's go for a break very quickly, and we'll return to our conversation with Mr. Maithri Gunaratne, former Governor and President's Counsel.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Indian High Commissioners Poson Vish.
ආයුබෝවන් ඔබ සේමට වෙනබර පෝසෝන පොහොය දිනක් වේවා.
Adani Group disappointed over power project controversy. Sri Lanka's worsening fuel crisis. Will India provide more loans for Sri Lanka to buy fuel? Holiday for public officials on Friday. Will a decision be made over school transport issues? 6 shootings in 2 weeks. Who are these motorcycle murderers?
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. We're discussing matters about balancing foreign policy and national procurement and national commercial needs. Now then, Maithri Gunaratne, we spoke about this, where we don't have the money, and so we might as well invite anyone, whoever wants to make that investment in. But how about applying that same, you know, what about Sri Lanka Telecom, for example? It seems to be sailing smoothly now.
Yeah, for us, if you remember, Telecom also was a laid-back institution. To get a telephone connection,
it took years.
It took years.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Mr. Mangala Samaravira was the minister as he was then.
Yeah.
He was able to very smoothly privatize the telecommunication sector, especially the Sri Lanka Telecom, and it is a money-making institution which belongs to the government. So what I'm saying is, for us, why can't we adopt the same model for the electricity board, for the petroleum corporation, all these government entities?
What about that other national disaster?
The Lanka.
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. Same theory. All these government-owned, state-owned enterprises make a system where the government owns maybe 80% of it, give 20% to a person who wants to come in, give him a assurance that it will be given to them for 25 years or 30 years or 50 years, so that they know that there is continuity. And why should the government get involved in all this? They have the major stakeholder will be the government or the treasury. They give out 20%, and here you are running 420 organizations at a terrific profit. So that is where you start bridging your budget or your income. That is where you get the money. So I think for us that has to be done forthwith. Why it is not happening is for politicians to put in their cronies, to give them chairman post, to give them working director post, to employ people in these organizations, to get their cronies, organization which can take only 50 people is running with 150 or 200 people. So then what happens? Then no organization can survive. Now we'll say if Sirasa, you need only 50 people to run Sirasa, if you load it with 200 people, can you run it at a profit?
Yeah, we'd run it with 45.
Run it with 40, precisely.
Yeah.
So this same phenomenon should be applied to all organizations, and especially for us. Now there is an Auditor General's department.
Yeah.
The Auditor General's department can be told, okay, we'll say the Sri Lanka Electricity Board.
Yeah.
How many people do you need to run the electricity board?
Yeah.
You give us a audit on how many people you need. Now once that audit is given as to how many people you need to run the electricity board, no one can employ anyone more than that. So whatever government is in power, if it is 200 people which is required to run the electricity board, it cannot exceed 200. It has to be exactly 200, nothing more. If anyone appoints anyone more than 200 for us, that money will have to be paid by the person who appointed those fellows into that organization. So this is a very simple thing to do. I can't understand why, because no politician wants this rule to be brought in. If you bring this rule, they cannot bring in their cronies, they cannot employ people from the electorates into this organization. That's the very reason. So this has to stop for us.
It has to stop.
Otherwise,
these free lunches have
to stop. And who is paying? We are paying dearly.
Yeah.
Now for us, when you come on the streets, I mean, it's a very sorry state of affairs. You know, people standing in gas queues. I was in Norelia this weekend. At 11 o'clock in the night, people were waiting for kerosene in that cold. I mean, it's not fair for us. People appoint a government at least to give their basic needs. The basic needs. These people have not been able to give their basic needs. So it's a total failure of the system. Total failure of the system. So I mean, for us, these have to be addressed, and we cannot go any further in this manner. All parties, including the president, has to take serious note of this and privatize. Don't have baggage. All these loss-making institutions must be privatized forthwith. Otherwise, and the other thing is, for us now, you take the railway.
Yeah.
The railway in Colombo has 800 acres of land. 800 acres of land. The London Stock Exchange came into the railway, some of the buildings near Elphinstone Theatre, if you go there. The London Stock Exchange has come in. They have started the offices there. Now that is an outsourcing of the stock exchange activities into Sri Lanka. There were several other buildings which they wanted to take. The railway unions stood in the way. Now how do you...
What are they going to do with this unproductive dead land?
Dead land. And for us, if you take the railway department, the prime lands in every city, because all railways run through the major cities of this country.
I think we should give a message to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa that you were sort of elected because you portrayed yourself as a very strong man and you wanted strong government. So the sovereign people of Sri Lanka voted you in, 6.9 million people. You got a near two-third majority in parliament, but you converted that two-thirds thanks to some misguided minority members of parliament, those Muslim fellows especially. And you got all that, but you're not being strong enough. Why on earth can't... These are dead lands. You need to turn them into productivity.
Precisely. And I would say for us, the poor public of Sri Lankan public, their transportation can be subsidized, especially if these lands are properly utilized. Now, if you take the baseline road from the Dematagoda junction, passing that overhead bridge, lands on both sides belong to the railway department. Most of the lands on both sides belong to the railway department. Totally underutilized. I would say, I'm just only giving you one example. I would say you can build 10,000 apartment complexes, 10,000 apartments, 10,000 units on those lands, and just imagine if you can sell one unit for 25,000 rupees a month as rent. Buildings will be owned by the railway. It will be rented out 10,000 units at 25,000 rupees per unit, a two-bedroom apartment. So the youth of this country, if they want to get if they want to buy a house or if they want to rent a house, here there is enough railway land in the center of the country, in the center of all cities, where you can do it. And the banks, you can get enough funding for this. There is the railway department can make use of these lands, do this kind of development, and give the public extremely subsidized rates for their transport.
Lots of questions been coming through about inviting anybody to invest here. A point taken, because some of them might be black money and all sorts of things.
Those are things for us. The central bank will have to.
Yes, but don't you think that any bona fide investor,
yes,
say coming into the BOI, or I suppose the BOI, because that's the first step, shouldn't they accompany their proposal with a solid background check on their financial standing and whether they are politically exposed people and so on?
Yeah.
Something like a Kroll report, so that they pay for it. They're not cheap, by the way, but they pay for it, and it's accompanied so that the person on the Sri Lankan government, yes, looking at it, yes, could say, well, you know, we can separate the boys from the men.
Definitely. Now, for us, if you are going to a bank, you have to take audit. If to get a loan, yeah, you have to get an audited account statement.
Indeed.
So, and no bank has, basically they have not, yeah, they have not challenged that. So in the same way for us, what I'm saying is, for us, these are modalities which have to be worked out.
Yeah.
But in principle, we must agree that when a person wants to come and invest in Sri Lanka, that he's not going to be taken on one ride for 2 years.
Now, you know, sometimes people say that we mustn't oppose, you know, we need to not oppose, but sometimes we do oppose the selling off of state assets, you know, family silver, that sort of thing. But isn't it necessary at times to understand that the government has no business being in business?
Definitely.
Definitely. That the government
what
must
I'm saying is, for us, if you don't want to sell it, yeah, if you are feeling uncomfortable to sell it, give 30% to the private sector. You retain the balance. There is no issue on that for us.
Is it when people talk about sovereignty and people talk about being very patriotic, is that the last refuge of the scoundrel?
Definitely. So for us, the sovereignty in this country lies in the people. It is the people of this country who are sovereign. In short, sovereignty means the king. Sovereignty means the king. So in Sri Lanka, the people are supposed to be the king. But ultimately, what has happened? All the kings are now standing in queues to get their petrol, their diesel. Now I think there are food queues, and there is a stampede for food. So the people are now, the supposed kings are on the streets, because why? The people elected fellows who have completely taken this country to the cleaners.
We have a very regular viewer based out in the south of Sri Lanka, in Galle, just outside Galle, and this person has said this, that all over the world, you know, housing is expensive, but also all over the world, housing that is built on the side of railway lines and so on are considerably cheaper than the other ones, because it's not prime. But isn't that something, this person is saying, isn't that something that we ought to do here?
Precisely. That's what I'm saying, for us to make use of the state lands, and especially the railway department. As I said before, it has the prime lands in this country. Why not make use of it? And not only that, you take Viharamavadevi Park. I'm just giving you a good example. There is the Nelumpukono Theatre. Then there is the John De Silva. There is the Mahaveli Center. There is the Municipal Council, some hall there.
Yeah.
And then there are the tennis courts. Now there are 4 or 5 theatres along that road. How often are they used?
Mm-hmm.
The Nelumpukono Theatre, if you are going to hire it, you need to spend 2 million rupees. That is before the dollar went up to 350. Now it may be more. How many people of this country can afford to hire the Nelumpukono for 1 day or a couple of hours, paying 2 million rupees for us? Do we need it?
We absolutely agree with you. All the free lunches are forthwith cancelled. That's the message from Aragale, isn't it?
Precisely.
State-owned enterprises, watch out, because if you're not going to pull your socks up and create a profit, show a profit not only financial but in terms of delivery too,
Definitely.
Aragale will insist that you're closed down, and I'm sure the President and the Cabinet will have no say in the matter because they will have to follow. Maithri Gunaratne, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for us.
And that's the way it was on Newsline Live. Take care. It's now time for the primetime news, and as always, God bless you all.